this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer Beer House for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Since that time, they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal and an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio.
Welcome to Strong Dads. Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson with Strong Dads, and I'm here with
Kyle Crawford.
Kyle. How are you, brother?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Oh, man, I am good. I am so excited to get into what we're going to call part two of our guest, Will Berry. Will, how are you today?
I'm great.
Good. So we're going to do part two. Part one was amazing, and I think amazing in the sense of the stories that you shared. And if you didn't listen to part one, you need to go back and listen to part one, because part two is what we're going to talk about today. And part two won't make as much sense if you didn't hear part one, because, man, the stuff you guys went through. And these were just in neighborhoods in little old Cincinnati. Yeah. Amazing. So, but let's cover a couple commercials and then we want to start into part two. All right. So we want to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.
Heck yeah, thanks so much. And also, Strong Dads definitely wants to thank Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 for coming alongside of Strong Dads. Go down there and get some pork chops. I gotta get back down there and get some pork chops down there at Route 128.
It's about time.
Yep, so definitely a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down there and check out Crimer's Beer House.
Okay. So, Will, to close out last part one, you were talking about you've been incarcerated multiple times, rode the street hard, had a wife. You talked about she got beat to death. And you were kind of at your wit's end at this point, and we started to talk about the idea that you started to drop to your knees and pray. And so, if I can just backtrack a little bit, you're praying now on the heels of being in prison. What exposure did you have to God or to Jesus in your life, even as a kid?
So what happened was, and I asked my mom how this happened, is a kid throughout my elementary school days, I got in a lot of trouble. I got suspended a lot, and I got kicked out of the only, like I said, there was only a couple public schools that I could go to. And what ended up happening is my mom got me into a Catholic school. And it was like the second or third grade. And I asked her later on in life, I said, Mom, how'd you afford to send me to that Catholic school? She said it was the other way around. We couldn't afford to send you there, so they gave us a grant and let you in.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, I guess it's...
But it was really kind of the only place that would take you.
Yeah, it was like kind of like, hey, you don't have enough money, so we'll take certain people. So I was exposed to it that way. We really didn't go to church or anything that, do any praying or Bible studies or nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that seed was kind of planted there, right?
It was there. It was definitely there. I definitely knew who Jesus Christ was, but I didn't know the depth.
Right. Yeah.
So,
do any of us?
Yeah, it's an ongoing process there for sure.
True.
So, Will, let's start to talk about how things start to turn around for you. You are on your knees. You're praying. Mm-hmm. You've lost your first wife. You've been in and out of jail. What starts to look different for you?
So I'm in this 3-quarter house, and what I did I went to a doctor, and he put me on medication, which calmed me down a little bit to where I could start focusing a little bit, and it helped me a lot. And I don't recommend that to everybody, but for me at the time, I think I was under so much anxiety. I had to have something, just to get me to calm down in order to think a little bit straight. So, at this 3-quarter house is on Vine Street, and, it's in the middle of a really bad neighborhood, in downtown Cincinnati. And I used to walk back and forth to, and mind you, I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't mind saying that. It's an anonymity program, but if I'm saying it, I'm breaking my own anonymity, which it don't matter.
That's up to you.
Yeah. So, I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous real strong, and I started doing the 12 steps Alcoholics Anonymous and taking, steps to better my life. Now, I was still, doing a lot of things that weren't necessarily right, but not breaking the law no more. I was still
working a little bit more in the gray area.
Yeah, I'm more towards the gray now, and starting to see a little bit of light. What happened was a beautiful thing happened. Is there was a place called the Lord's Gym, which was in downtown, and it was in the ghetto big time. And I was the only white guy that went there. And I'll tell you what, as soon as I walked in, there was the pastor that run it. His name was Brother Jerry. And he said, I can tell. He said, I can tell you. He said, please keep coming back. He said, you remind me of a sergeant. He's like, you were a sergeant out there, weren't you? I was like, no, I wasn't a sergeant. Brother Jerry. And I loved him from the minute I met him. And, he was this old, he was like a 65-year-old black guy, had been in, just like me, been in prison many times, and he wasn't scared of nobody, and he wasn't a big guy either, and he ran that place with an iron fist. And what we do is we work out, and I started powerlifting. I got into powerlifting, and we started doing competitions. But the beautiful thing about the Lord's Gym is you could lift for an hour, but then they do a half-hour Bible study. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of really what started fueling my want and desire for the Lord. That's when I believe the Lord just started nudging me real strong, like, listen to this, ask this, do this. And I started being convicted of certain things, like when I'm messing with girls, multiple women, or if I wasn't doing something, just to move forward. I had to progress. I couldn't digress. Yeah. I had to, or else I regress. Regress. Yeah. I knew if I started to regress, like if you were to drop $100 bill, I picked it up and said, hey, sir, I'd chase you down and hand it to you, because I knew if I didn't do that, I knew what was behind me or what was ahead of me that had already, been done.
So how old are you when you're doing the Lord's Gym here?
At this time, I'm about 30 years old.
Okay, so you're not a young kid.
Yeah, we fast forward a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So, man, we, not to totally get off subject, but I am going to put a little plug in, because it's exactly what I feel like I have to do here. On Saturday mornings here at Rock Solid Families, we're going to do, I have a Strong Dad's weight or a fitness program, but it used to be just 8 weeks at a time, and then we would take a break. From now on, I'm dedicating our Saturday mornings just to men, just to dads. Yeah. And it's just we're going to work out for 45 minutes or so, and then we're going to do like a 45-minute Bible study, just because, the reason why you walked into the Lord's Gym is because you knew you could lift. Yeah, you wanted to work out, and it's a common ground.
And I'll even plug you here too. I know your workout. It will get you fit.
You're a big boy, but I'll smoke you.
That's a big plug. And you will smoke me too, because I've seen you do it and I can't keep up with it. Yeah. I'm like, man, can I say the name of what it is?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the finisher.
He's not being paid for this, by the way.
I'm not being paid, but
Merle just slipped him some money.
When you do the finisher, you might not want to be too proud and grab a bunch of big weights. You might want to start small.
It's funny. All the big boys come in and they start, and they get 10 minutes into it. And
it's like, slow down. This is a workout you've never done before. You better.
Yeah, you got to breathe.
But I'll plug it for sure.
Yeah. So. Well, thank you. this brother Jerry is starting to feed into you.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're starting to be convicted of right and wrong, and then actually carrying that out. You're by no means an angel.
No.
You're still being battled. Are you? Where are you living at this time?
So I'm at the 3-quarter house.
You're still there.
I'm there for almost 18 months.
Okay.
And this is a place where 50 men live together and try and, get sober. It's guys getting out of prison, homeless guys coming in off the street, trying to get sober. It's basically it's just sober living house. And, what was cool about the Lord's Gym too is, we'd hang outside, but it was like there was a barrier there. Because everybody at the Lord's Gym was there for, 99% was there for positive reasons. And you'd still see what was going on across the street, and there was a lot of stuff going on. And like I said, I started doing powerlifting. We started doing competitions, and that was fun. And then before you know it, Brother Jerry had gotten sick, and he passed.
Mm.
But the way he preached and the way he showed me what Jesus was about and what God was about, like, touched my heart so much that even when I went to visit him, he was like dying. And he said, and me and my buddy that always worked out together, they're a big black guy named Aaron, good friend of mine. And by the way, my racial tension started to calm down a little bit once I started.
Kind of had to when you were in that gym, right?
Yeah. So it calmed down a little bit, and I started seeing things for what they were instead of, certain people. But it was crazy because we walked in, and he said, "I heard you two come." And he was so cool, and he said. And he was sick, could barely move. And he said, "Come here. I've been waiting for you guys." And he grabbed our hands. He said, "Let me pray for you." Mm. And, it was like, "You're praying for me? Like, this is what I want, And, it's like, no, I wish I could have said, I wasn't strong enough in my faith at the time to say, "Let me pray for you,"
Yeah.
And one more thing, not to get off subject, but I remember getting pulled over. I was with this girl, and I said this in my Bright Christian church interview. Am I allowed saying that?
Yeah.
And I remember getting pulled over, and I think I still, and this is fresh into the Lord's Gym and me getting sober and all this, and she got pulled over right in front of the Lord's Gym. Brother Jerry was just standing outside. And he was just cool, man. And he, and he was so confident in his faith. And I looked out and I thought I had some warrants. And I said, "Brother Jerry, I am so scared." I said, "I don't want to go back to jail." And he said, "I swear it chokes me up every time." He said, "Well, you got to be nervous for it, Will. You're a son of the king." He said, "You don't be, excuse me." And I get choked up every time I think of that, because that's where it kind of started to flip. He's like, "You're the son of the king. Mm. You don't have to be nervous anymore." And right there it was like, oh, I am. Mm. Like, I either I'm going to accept this or I'm not, and right there, I started going to, later on, there was another pastor that come in. I started going to his church, and oh man, they'd sing songs for hours, and I'd be like, "Oh man, I can't take this church. I love the people here, but this song just lasted like an hour and a half. I don't even like singing. Just preach, So that's how I was introduced, and my faith really started to really grasp on.
Wow, that's amazing.
Dude, that is freaking crazy.
That's
just
awesome.
We just talked about legacy before. Like, what are you going to leave behind?
Yeah.
Like, you just talking about Brother Jerry, like, what he did for you in your life.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what a testimony to who that man was in his life and what he stood for. He saw something in you and dug deep with you, Man, that's a cool story.
Yeah. And he really was only in your life for how many months?
I'd say 18 months, before he died. And then
wow.
I moved on, and moved out of Charlie's, where I lived in the halfway house. So,
Okay. So, I certainly don't want to shortchange your story or anything,
Sure.
but so do you stay in the area or
No?
Where do you go from here?
So I'm doing Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm going to church, and I start seeing my kids again. At this time,
Wait, you have kids?
Yeah.
We missed all that story.
You missed a lot.
Yeah.
One of my youngest son is actually by a counselor at the methadone clinic when I was going there at the time. So,
dude, you just, I'd say you don't mess around, but you do.
So, yeah, it was real funny in child support court, like when she was talking, I said, I was a patient there at the methadone clinic. What kind of stellar dad you think I was going to be, you were a counselor. You're not supposed to do that, but I didn't care. But anyways, I had 2 kids, and my youngest lived in Indiana because I was coming over to the methadone clinic back then. And I started seeing them again and getting into their lives. And I moved out, and I got a job. I didn't say this, but I got a job right away just doing with a remodeling company. And I was just doing simple stuff because I had no work ethic at all. Zero. Like all I knew was how to steal, cheat, and rob.
Yeah.
So $10 an hour back when I was, I'll be 45. So, I was 30 years old. Was great. I moved out, saved money, got a little apartment. And then I was coming over to Indiana to get my youngest son. And he said, let's stop at this pool. And we stopped at a pool, and that's where I met my wife today, who, as of 2 days ago, we've been married 10 years, and together 12. So, and my life started to take off, and, I was still, like I said, we've been married 10, and then 2 years though, I wasn't faithful to her, but I could feel the Holy Spirit convicting. I could, and maybe, I don't know what it was nudging me yet, but I knew once, and I started going to Bright Christian Church because my son lived in Bright, and finally I got baptized, and that's when I really felt the Holy Spirit nudging me, like, hey, the wife I'm with today, my wife, she said, I won't take this. I'm not this type of woman, you can't come over on the weekends and hang out with me, and then go do what you want throughout the week. And, and I started hanging drywall too. I started to work for a drywall company, about, 14 years ago, 13 years ago. And that's where I learned my real work ethic and what I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah. So, so just amazing. And obviously this is Strong Dad's podcast, and you are the kind of man that we, more than anything, want to grab hold of or get a message to. And it is my prayer that your story hits the ears of somebody who is maybe in a somewhat similar life path. And we're not done talking at all, because I think when you make this transition from basically kind of running your own life to letting Christ run your life, it's not just like an instant for most of us. No. It's not like, you kept dabbling in stuff, sure. And now you really you're still a kid in your growth in Christ, right? So where are the battles now?
So, and of course we're all still maturing, and the battles now is once I got baptized, I finally was, I loved being with a whole lot of different women, and I thought it was great, but it started to get really empty. And that didn't fill no void. And by the way, I'm still sober, and I'm still working the 12 steps, and I'm still going to church now, you know, and this is a regular thing. So now the battles I prayed to the Lord. I said, please let me, you know, because my wife today, she cut her phone off, and she actually moved. So I didn't even know where she was. And I thought to myself, I said, this is the best woman I've ever, because I was used to, you know.
She did this earlier on when she caught you.
Yeah, when I
so
wasn't, you know, and she said, I'm not doing this. And then, you know, I said, fine, I'm going to go do my thing. Well, things got empty, and I didn't talk to her for a couple months, but I thought to myself, if I could ever talk to her again, I'm going to marry this woman. And she called the day I got baptized and said, I saw you get baptized, or somehow she knew I got baptized, and I couldn't believe that she called me, and I was like, we got to get together. Let's get together. So we met up, and I said, look, I'm not going to cheat no more. I'm not going to mess with any girls. Marry me, you know, let's get married, please. Mm-hmm. And she married me, and, you know, and that's the story there. And I haven't cheated since, you know. Mm-hmm. Now the battles, as far as lust and stuff like that, they still go on, you know, even today, you know, I don't think that ever changes. It slows down because I just pray, and sometimes it's so hard, and I'll say it loud, like, devil, you know, away from me, you know, because I know it comes on strong, and you know, and the battles were with still, even to this day, with a certain amount of violence. You know, I even had to, you know, I started going to an MMA gym, you know, and you know, I started fighting in the cage, and you know, and stuff like that, and I had to, like, relieve myself. But if I look back in retrospect, though, I still think it's all a certain amount of pride. And some of it is false pride, because I believe that, you know, if I fully surrendered, which, you know, I like to say I did, you know, but if I really fully surrendered, you know, would I really need to, you know, punch people in the throat, or want to, you know, do this and that?
That's why I'm sitting across from you, not next to you.
So, you know, would I really want to go and do this all the time, you know? So there was still battles, and there's battles today of, you know, of trying to shed that old skin off of me.
Yeah.
But, you know, since I met my wife, she had 2 kids. We're like the Brady Bunch, and we had a kid together, and my youngest daughter's almost is 8, you know, going on 9 now. So,
you know, Will, you bring up, I think, such a great point, pride. And, you know, whether you're raised up on the streets, in the ghetto, wherever it is, or even in your own home, in your Brady Bunch home, if you don't understand pride, pride is the heart of prejudice. Pride is the heart of our self-righteousness. Pride is what keeps Christ out, and just being humbled. And one of the things that has just come across to me, that even though I know that you've had this big persona about you out on the street, you're very humble. The idea that you'd even come in here, like you told me, I'm just telling you, I'm going to be completely honest in this story. I'm going to just, and to expose yourself. A prideful person would never want to expose all that, you know, and just you're exposing it in a way that says, you know, I recognize that I need help. I don't have it all. And I think that's, some people might hear your story and go, well, I'm not as bad as him.
Sure.
And the idea that I would even say I'm not as bad as him is a prideful statement, because we're all bad, right? We all have junk, and it's just, I was fortunate to be raised in a home that didn't have the crazy stuff, but that created a pride in me.
Sure.
Right? A false pride. Because I was a long time in coming to my faith, in terms of, even though I went to church and everything else, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. It is not unusual to drive by a home and see a Trump sign or a Biden sign or whatever. But I wonder if that was a Christian, how likely they would be to put a Jesus sign.
Yeah.
You know, like we'll be so proud of these human traits, these human people, these human characteristics. But if that same person put a Jesus shirt on or put a Jesus sign in the yard, everybody would be like, they're a freaking idiot. You see what I'm saying? I mean, and so that pride of choosing a certain side and protecting our neighborhood and all that really can run rampant in terms of our life decisions. So, so part of being the strong dad now is the conviction that you feel. And I like before you said, you know, now if I see $100 bill drop out of somebody's pocket, I pick it up and I follow that person and get it back to them. Okay. So it's the conviction. You talked about lust.
Sure.
You know, we've done entire shows on lust and pornography and stuff, and it's very real. Okay. But the difference starts to be, as you said before, the conviction, like, oh, wait, you catch yourself rather than feed it.
Yes.
Right. The work ethic. See, this is what, why didn't you have a work ethic? And why did it have to be built?
Yeah. I mean, because, you know, there was no strong dad.
Yeah. I mean,
not
my boys do not like me right now.
But to plug the show. Yeah, but you look at your boys, you know, great men.
Yeah. And
you know, strong men.
Right. And we don't do these things. It's that discipline, but that work ethic, that thing that, you know, we care for something bigger than ourselves. I'm just totally amazed. So can I ask you a question? You said earlier, we all have a choice. We all have a choice. All right. So there's a lot of people that come up in the situation that you were in, and maybe they end up dead on the street. Maybe they end up incarcerated for life. What do you think drives the choice? Like, why don't they choose a better way, and why did you choose a better way?
Ooh, that's
a deep question.
That's deep.
Hey, man,
that's deep. Because I still ask that why, because my best friend is a kid was stabbed in the neck and murdered about 5 years ago. Right next to his house, right where I grew up, and and I'm wondering, he was a great person. Why is he gone? Or why did I choose this and other people don't? I guess that the Lord let me live long enough maybe to give this podcast.
Yeah. What's the message you got to get out?
The message is maybe, hey, since we're talking about strong dads, it's like, I am actually, my kids, I look at them now, and the ones that I've raised since they were babies almost, and then, they're not biologically mine, but, except for the youngest. But the two girls, the one's almost 15 now. And, she was barely 2 when I married not married, but met my wife and started, being involved in their lives. But I couldn't imagine. I look at them now and the way they believe in the Lord and the way that, we've led them. I think to myself, like, I was heading to prison at her age.
Yeah.
And I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
I just can't even put it together. And that drives me right there too, that I can, be there for them. And then, my work ethic is, as you know, I have a little drywall company.
Yeah.
For an 8th grade education, some days, and maybe this is egotistical or prideful, but some days I can make more than, people that have gone to college for most of their life, and that amazes me too. So I'm saying that in amazement. Like sometimes I'm like, did I just make that much? But it's not like I'm ripping people off. People don't like to do drywall.
Yeah. Well, you're a hard worker, and you found your niche with that. And I think the idea that God's now using you, using your story. I think the most important part of all of our Strong Dads talk is the generation that you are impacting from this day forward. Absolutely. I mean, your kids right now. And I think, not to discredit your dad, but I would be willing to bet that his dad was not always involved in a healthy way. And this is that generational impact that we talk about. All of these issues that we're seeing out there in the news and all this is something that we want to start the conversation here in this generation today, only knowing that it's a long-term fix, right? I mean, your short-term fixes were drugs, were fighting, were stealing. Sure. Those were your short terms, but they don't pan out very well. And so the idea that you are investing now in a generation forward is
breaking
what this is about.
The
curse is right. Yeah.
And I want to note something because I think it's important for any of you guys out there. Like, Will, your story is a great testament to the fact that a lot of times us as men think we have to have all of our shit together before we come to the foot of the cross. Mm-hmm. And just that idea, you didn't have everything together, but you knew it was either that or continue to perpetuate that cycle of another generation that was going to end up in prison or dead. Absolutely. Like, you made that decision. And I think it's just important to note because what that decision did for you not only radically changed your life, but has radically changed the life of your kids. Because the way you approach parenthood looks completely different because you have a Father in heaven that you rely on. And it's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. No. And we're going to always strive to get better. But it's that idea that you don't have everything together. I don't have everything together. Merle doesn't have everything together. No. But that's the beauty of Christianity. That's the beauty of who Christ is. Like, we don't have to have everything together to come to him, to like submit ourselves to the idea that he conquered all that. And I think it's just cool to note that you didn't have everything together, but you still found a way.
No, and I love telling people, my favorite, what I love hearing people say is, the church will burn down if I walk in it. And I'm thinking, like, you're who Jesus is looking for right now.
Yeah. Like,
you don't even get it. Like, you are the one that he wants to find.
Right. And that's huge. As I sit here and just hear this whole story roll out, I'm just totally amazed at how God has transformed your life. But I think that the message here needs to be to these, hopefully, if you hear this, any of you listeners out there, if you hear this and you have somebody in your life that just feels like it's all going to pieces and it's never going to work, they need to hear your story.
Absolutely.
Because the redemption part of this is so important. I think the other cool thing too, and I've said this before on shows. This is another reason why I can't be an atheist. All right. I can't be an atheist because an atheist, I've never heard anybody give a story like you just shared in part one, especially, and said, I finally got my life together and became a great dad and a great person because I became an atheist. No, because there's no conviction in the atheistic. You have to have something greater than you that is pulling you along. And we call that God, and the man form is Jesus Christ. And so, man, if you just think you're going to get sober for a little while or you're going to be better for a little bit, there's no staying power in that.
And that's that pride issue. Yeah. Because if you don't have something to humble you, it's always that pride. I can fix everything going on in my life. If you don't have that believer to look at, if your sole purpose in life is to do your thing, then pride's always going to come in. I think that's kind of the surrounding storyline behind everything you've been talking about. Is just that pride issue, and it took you humbling to something so much bigger than yourself. Yeah. And from what from talking in the first part of this story, you kind of were the big dog on the street, right? And just that idea that you found something that was bigger than you.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, we want to wrap it up. Will, I want to thank you so much for sharing your whole story here. And obviously, we didn't touch on your whole story, but you gave us enough of a glimpse of what it was like to be raised in a home without a strong father figure, and then how we just went wayward, and then how finally redemption comes, and how now it's affecting and impacting even your kids moving forward. So we just want to thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Will.
How about let's thank a few sponsors and let's sign this puppy off.
Heck yeah, Will, again, thanks so much for being here. Really do appreciate you taking the time to share your story. But definitely Strong Dads, again, wants to thank Crimer's Beer House and Mansfield Insurance Agency for coming alongside and believing in what we believe in, giving Will the opportunity to share his story. So, again, thanks so much for all you guys out there. Go out there and be some strong dads.
Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.